Welcome to Holistic Accountant Podcast, where we aim to showcase how adopting a holistic approach in accounting and tax maximizes value for clients. Beyond traditional tasks like preparing financial statements and tax returns, a holistic accountant focuses on offering advice that maximizes personal wealth on an after-tax basis. If you enjoy this episode, please consider leaving a rating and sharing it with those who might also benefit. And to ensure you stay updated, subscribe to our weekly email. The link is in the show notes. Okay, today, Mena, I would like to talk about using the flywheel concept to grow your business. The flywheel was a concept discovered by Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, which is a fantastic business book. And if you haven't read that, even if you're not a reader, and I've got to admit I do plenty of reading for work, but I don't tend to like to do too much reading in my out of office time. But certainly it's one of those books that even if you're not a reader and you're really into business, that you won't be able to put it down. So the flywheel, what is it? The flywheel is a concept where the idea that you don't change a single lever to achieve success in business. The flywheel idea is that what you need to do is work on a few key components that are interrelated, that if you do this step, then the consequence of doing that step is only this happens, more customers, more visits, more inquiries, whatever it might be. And then if you do something there, then the process is, well, then we get more clients. And so with each step, we get to turn a flywheel. And so the flywheel, if you think about it, is this wheel that sort of moves in water, and it gradually starts with a little bit of water sort of fills up. And then as the wheel turns, it gathers more water. And eventually after time and repetition, the wheel gets its own momentum and its own steam. And so the methodology is identify what are the key components. Normally there's like 4 to 6 components in a flywheel. What are those really key important steps that you do in order to deliver your product and service, and then focus on executing and improving each of those steps equally throughout the flywheel. And if you do that consistently for a long period of time, the thesis is that, per Jim Collins, is that that's the easiest way, or that's the way where you can kind of get 10x returns, where businesses that scale significantly over many decades have really mastered this flywheel concept. Perhaps the best way to explain it is to use some examples.
And Jim Collins started with an example which I think a lot of people have heard of, a company called Amazon.
That small little company?
Yep. So he identified 5 levers that Amazon really use. And once you sort of visualize this or hear that and the individual levers, it would really resonate with you. So the first one is lower prices on more offerings. This then leads into the increase of customer visits. So if they can provide more products at lower prices, and of course this leads into more customer visits on their websites. As a result, in the third lever, it would attract more third-party sellers to their platform. And then the fourth lever, they get to expand the store, extend distribution, establish economies of scale, and then of course the fifth lever, grow revenues per fixed cost. So again, establishes the economies of scale, gets more products on the platform, increases customer visits, and like Stuart mentioned, it just continual roundabout. The more efficient they get about it, the more efficient and more repetition they get from it, the more economies of scale, the more sellers, the more profitability, and it just keeps on going. I'll share with you Pro Solutions Flywheel. We established one here where the first sort of lever is where we invest in our business, we invest in our systems, our tools, our resources, our environment, our culture, our learning opportunities to attract a talented team. In the day, we're a service-based business. We need to make sure that our clients are happy, they're getting the best value for what they're paying, and we need to attract the right and passionate team members to strive to do their best work. And then this then goes into the collaboration component, the third perspective, where we create so much value that our clients feel compelled to actually talk about us. We have a saying here that we want to provide a service that's worthy of remark. This then leads into, telling stories. We tell stories of successful client outcomes, results, and so forth. We actually, as a firm, get together at least once a month to discuss what we've been able to achieve for certain clients. And then this then allows us to be quite selective with our client base. We have certain policies here where we don't want to be dealing with the wrong type of clients or clients where we can't actually add value to. So we want to be working with clients that we can add the most scope, the most value, and actually be part of the life cycle of our client's journey.
So the flywheel works best when if you execute on that first step, you can't help but achieve the second step. So if I go back to Amazon's Flywheel, which begins with lower prices on more offerings, if we offer lower prices, if we beat our competitors, we can't help but increase customer visits. And if we increase customer visits, we can't help then by attracting more third-party sellers, because more third-party sellers will want to come to the website because that's where all the traffic comes. And if we get more third-party sellers, of course, then our store expands. We've got more and more offerings, and then we get more scale, which then allows us to reduce prices even further, which increases customer visits. And as you can see, around and around it goes. And the same with the Pro Solution Flywheel. The concept is the same. And so what are the benefits of identifying the flywheel? Well, I think there's heaps of benefits, right? Because you could be spending energy in your business or focusing on things that, might be one component of the flywheel, but the flywheel only works if all steps are optimized. Because if one step isn't optimized, the flywheel slows down and the growth just won't be there. And so what it will do is highlight all those things that you need to focus on. It's not just going to be one single point, but there's going to be 4 or 5 steps in there that you really need to make sure that you can execute on. And so if I go back to our business, it's really about attracting and retaining talented team members. And then if you've got really smart people, then it's about getting them all into the same room to talk about one particular client, because they're going to come up with some great ideas. And then if we do that successfully, of course, we're going to have great stories to tell, not only us internally, but also our clients will tell their friends and family and so forth. And if we do that successfully, of course, then there's going to be a lot of demand for our services, in which case then we can select the clients where we think we can add the most amount of value. We empower our team with great tools and training and so forth, which creates a great place to work at, which then attracts talented team members, and again, around it goes. So it just means that we know exactly what we need to focus on in our business.
So how do you discover your flywheel? So I'll outline 4 main steps or the framework that we used to establish our flywheel. And the first one is understand the core mission and vision. So why are you in business? And I guess this is more than you want to make some money, but what's the purpose of your business? What are you trying to achieve? And where do you want the business to sort of flourish? So identify your purpose, begin by clarifying the company's mission and vision. Understanding your core purpose will guide the development of the flywheel.
Yeah, so again, for Pro Solution, the vision really was reduce the silos between financial services. So normally you go to an accountant to ask a tax question, or a planner to ask a question about super, or a mortgage broker to ask a question about mortgages, of course. But we believe that it shouldn't be siloed like that the most opportunity is where we break down those silos. Not only does it create cross-training opportunities, so everyone gets smarter, but also it creates better opportunities. And that was kind of the foundation, or the fundamental step of our flywheel, is that we needed to sort of break down those silos and create that collaboration.
And then establish your values. So define what your organization's culture is and your decision-making process. They go sort of hand in hand. We met with a client earlier last week who said that their purpose and value is people, and they've built their whole business around that. And it's amazing what they've been able to achieve. They went from, revenue of a couple $100,000, and they're on track to reach up to 50 million in the next couple of years. And they've really sort of focused on their people and empowered them and built their business around it. And then the second thing to go through is your current operations. So evaluate your existing processes, look at your current workflows and operations to identify what activities are most impactful in establishing value for your clients or customers. And then this sort of goes into what we sort of spoke on our last blog, but you need to also assess performance. You can't manage what you can't measure. So put in place KPIs and analyze what drives success within your organization.
So I'll relate this back just to understandability. So for Pro Solutions Flywheel, it was really one of the key components here was firstly assembling a great team. The quality of our service and advice is directly related to the quality of the individuals in the business. The other thing was that if you pick the wrong clients that don't have very much scope to add value, then it doesn't matter how hard you work. If you can help them, if you do a simple individual tax return and you can help them save $100 in tax this year, that's fantastic, but it's not going to change anyone's life. Whereas if we pick a client where we can restructure their business and then help them invest their cash flow and dramatically change their position, well, as Mena says, that's a remarkable story, worthy of remark. So there's a couple of key sort of operational steps in our business that sort of helped us form that flywheel.
And the third thing is to get customer insights, engage with your customers. Sometimes, business owners don't want to hear the truth and, they're afraid of it, but conduct surveys, interviews and focus groups to understand what your customers are really looking for, what their preferences are. Otherwise, you're going to be a dying business. Identify any pain points that you have in the business, whether it be within your employees, employee and customer relationships, or if it's within your product or service. Without these insights, you're not going to be providing or have a business that's worthy of remark, like Stuart mentioned. Lastly, map out key activities. So, what are your key drivers? Determine what leads to your customer acquisition or referrals. How do you retain your customers and improve their satisfaction? Look for activities that can build momentum over time, and then visualize the flywheel. The first time I read Good to Great by Jim Collins and I saw that flywheel diagram of Amazon.com, I'm sure we'll share it on the blog as well, or on the podcast, sorry. It made so much more sense once you could actually visualize it. So it's not a bad idea to not jot down a few ideas before you actually establish what your levers are in your flywheel.
And just to wrap up, the flywheel is a really important exercise, as I said, because that does allow you to hone into what are the 3 to 6 things that I really need to execute well on, and that's where all your energy and focus of not only you but also your team can go on. In terms of developing our own flywheel, it took many months, right? Because you start to really think very carefully about the components of your business and the interaction. And what you want to do is identify what is that key step that if I do it, the consequence, the unavoidable consequence of achieving that is something else positive, and that it's all then interrelated and linked so that it does start turning as a flywheel. Have a go at it and then you start working on it. If you don't see the results, and it can take a little bit of time, we all know to sort of turn a big heavy flywheel, it needs to start building its own momentum, so it can take time. But if you're not seeing the results, it means that either you're not executing on one of those steps effectively enough, or you've misunderstood your flywheel. The other thing too is that flywheels can change as industries change. And so it is important to go back and revisit it every so often and just to test the principles. Does this still work? Is this still important? But it's a great concept, as many of those concepts in Good to Great, the book Good to Great, are, and certainly worthy of exploring further. Okay, we hope that's been really helpful. And until next week, bye for now.